All right. Well, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. My name is John Israel, and I'm excited to be here with you today because we've got a really valuable topic to be speaking about today. And this is a concept. I'm going to kind of bring my slides up here for a moment. And we are going to be talking about this concept called sales resilience, which is finding your pathway to success during challenging times. Now, the goal of this training, this content is very simple. It is to help you create resilience in your business, right? To create resilience in your business. Now, why is that relevant? Why is that important? Because everyone on this call or who's watching this training, you're it likely in some way, shape, or form involved in real estate or attached to the market, or you might run a separate business outside of real estate. But the point is, that this is a very unique and challenging time in the real estate industry. And when we think about sales resilience, why is this an important topic to be focusing on? Because sales is such a unique job in that we don't get guarantees like the rest of the world. Would y'all agree? We do not get guarantees like the rest of the world gets. Some people might say, oh, it must be so easy to be a realtor. Oh my gosh, look at that commission, how much you just made on selling one house or doing one loan. It's easy on the outside to look and say, hey, you make a lot of money for what seems like not a lot of work. Well, now, of course, we all know behind the scenes how much work actually goes into that. And what people don't realize is that part of the reason we are paid so highly in sales is that we are willing to accept a level of risk most people are unwilling to endure. Most people would rather, and to no fault to theirs, by the way, there's no fault in this, would prefer a job working more in an employee setting where they have a guaranteed pay regardless of how the company does. And one could actually say, oh, well, it's actually a more secure job in employment, right? People might say that. They say employment is a more secure way of working than if you are an independent salesperson. Now, there is some truth to that, but there's also a big misnomer, which is that when somebody is in an employee-based job, while yes, there might be some quote unquote security, but if there are market shrinkages and difficulties in what that company provides in the market, how that looks is people losing their jobs. Now, that should hopefully give you some empowerment as we step into this conversation today, because to make it in sales, we really have to cultivate resilience. Right? Resilience. And the way that we do that is through a concept that we'll be discussing today in a multitude of different fashions. And it comes from there's a book by a woman named Angela Duckworth. And the concept that she shares, if you've ever seen her TED Talks or anything, is that the number one, the greatest contributor to sustainable and high levels of success is something called grit, right? Grit is the ability to endure pain, challenge, and stay committed to the result. The ability to endure pain or challenge and stay committed to the result. Now, why is this relevant or pertinent to now? Because that's what we need to cultivate. We need to cultivate this ability to endure pain, to experience it and challenge, and then stay committed. Now, how do you do that? Right? Because it's easy to stay committed to do things we want to do when things are going well. But when things aren't going well, this is when most people start to quit. And the reality is right now in the market, every one of you are likely in one of three places, right? You might be in a position where your business is actually doing pretty well, right? I've talked to several agents, several loan officers who are actually having a pretty decent year. And that's great. If that's you and you're having your best year yet, congratulations. Some of you are kind of breaking even with what you've done in years past, right? You're not necessarily growing, you're grinding, and maybe it's a little harder to close deals, but you're doing about what you did last year. And some of you are in the third place, which is you're actually doing worse. You're closing less deals, less loans than you did previous years. And that can be pretty disheartening, right? Because we can start to question ourselves. Do I really know what I'm doing? Am I actually good at this job? Is this a good place for me to be right now? Right? Should I be in real estate? Should I maybe potentially go into a different industry? And if you have those questions or those feelings or emotions that come up for you, I would actually say that's completely natural. It's totally normal at any given moment that if you're experiencing adversity to start to question yourself, am I in the right place? But the point of doing anything is we don't do it for the challenging times. Why do we do it? We do it for the good times. We do it for the opportunity that comes with our job. We go through a 2023 for the opportunity for years like a 2020 or 2021, which for many of you was potentially the biggest profit years of your career. Maybe not, but that's okay. We do this business because of the opportunity of what's available. Yes, financially, but also in freedom and what we're allowed to do with our schedule, how much time we can spend with our family, the ability to make more money without a cap so that we can actually buy things that we want and invest in things for our families and have bigger goals and start other businesses. So there is benefit and value for being in this experience. And that's kind of what I want to begin with, is to understand that we don't do this for the challenge. We do this for the opportunity. So I have a question for you, which is, let me throw my slides back up here. What if you are exactly where you need to be right now? Think about that for a moment. What if you are exactly where you need to be right now? For what reason? Any number of reasons. But I bet for many, if not all of you, you've been through other really challenging times in your life. You've been through other difficult experiences that now you draw upon with strength. Your resilience that you've experienced in the past has actually created some of your greatest character qualities. How many of you would agree with that? The adversity you have already endured and experienced are the catalyst to the greatest qualities that you possess right now in your life. And there's a really beautiful perspective on this from there is an author that I love to read his books. His name is Eckhart Tolle. And one of the ways that can help us endure challenging times is to find meaning in what we're doing, to have a greater sense of purpose in the adversity we're experiencing. And so there's a book by Eckhart Tolle called A New Earth. And this is in the first chapter. This is how he closes the first chapter of the book. And I'll summarize the rest of the book with this quote because I think it really does so. And what he says is the purpose of every life experience is the elevation of human consciousness. The purpose of every life experience is the elevation of human consciousness. Now, what does that mean? That means that everything that we experience is actually perfectly designed for us to go through to become a better version of ourselves. Now, here's what I want to tell you. That is Eckhart Tolle's perspective. Now, is that true for all people? Is that how everybody treats adversity or challenging life experiences? No, of course not. There's a great book by a woman, and the book is called Mindset by Carol Dweck. And the concept that she shares is really at the basis of resilience. It's at the basis of having a resilient nature. And the concept is that of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Okay, a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And a growth mindset has a perspective on the world that I can get better, that things that occur actually have positive meaning for me to grow and get better. It has this view of things that occur and not judging them as good or bad, but just simply noticing them as information to help us improve and grow and create a better life. That's called a growth mindset. Now, a fixed mindset is very different. A fixed mindset has a very limited view of the world. It really defines things as black and white, good or bad, right and wrong, in the sense that things should or shouldn't have happened, right? Well, when we talked about adversity that we've overcome that has helped us create our greatest character qualities, there's also for a lot of people who've had major adversity that has been the catalyst for their worst life qualities. Things that happened to them that were challenging, that ultimately, what did they do with it? They said, well, hey, because this happened when I was a child, this means the world is unfair. And so I need to act unfairly back. And I'm going to, get into a life of crime or do things like that. I had a very, very close friend when I was a child that we went in completely different paths. And we used to hang out all the time and skateboard together. And there was a moment when as teenagers do, we started getting into some trouble. And I was very fortunate because, my family inadvertently moved out of the area. So I was no longer spending time with this kid. And this kid got in trouble very early and ultimately started to develop this mindset that I'm a bad kid. And we didn't talk to each other for about 6 or 7 years. And the next thing I knew when I talked to him after college was he had been in and out of prison. He had been in and out of drug rehabs, and he'd been in and out of all these things. And that's not to judge him, because he's a friend, and I love and appreciate him for our relationship we had when we were kids. But we all have pathways that we take, and none of us are perfect. And I bet there's something experiences that we've all had that maybe we wish didn't happen. But when we can have the perspective that every life experience we go through is a gift, and it's your job to find it. When we can think of our life experiences that way, there's actually value and there's meaning. And the difference is, do we have a fixed mindset about life or a growth mindset about life, that things are happening for us versus to us? So we're going to get into a powerful question that was asked to me many years ago that I'm going to open this up to the group in a moment. Before we do that, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite quotes from a book, or for a book as well as a movie that I'm sure everybody here has seen. I'm sure every one of you has seen this movie. Who's a Jurassic Park fan? Anyone ever see Jurassic Park? Yes, this is a not a new movie. They're always adding things to it and making sequels and whatnot. But I love this movie as a kid, and there's a quote inside of it that I thought was really brilliant, right? Because the question is really, will you survive? Will you make it through this market? And my favorite quote that came out of the movie and book Jurassic Park is, life will find a way. Life will find a way. And this is such a great concept to anchor ourselves in, because when we are in a moment of feeling that despair, that fear, that, oh my gosh, this is so hard right now. Can I do this? Can I get through this market? Just state to yourself the words, life will find a way. Now, my caveat to this quote is, life will find a way, and so will you. So will you. You can find a way through this as long as you're approaching it from the place of a growth mindset. So now, as we go into this next piece here with a question, I want to bring just some curiosity to you. I'm curious what your answer to this question is. So if you can put your screens on briefly for this, I would love to hear. If you put your screens on, I would love to see just a show of hands on this. How many of you have overcome worse adversity than we're going through right now? Raise your hand if you have overcome greater adversity than you're experiencing right now. 100% of the hands are raised. I want you to just notice that. And I want you to be present to that, because when we look at this market as it is, right, there's a judgment that we can put on this market. We can say this is a bad market. And I think for the most part, you can post that on Facebook. You're not going to have anyone disagreeing with you. You're going to have everyone be like, yes, this is terrible. This is so hard, whatever. You're going to get agreement around that. But here's my perspective. Bad markets aren't bad. They are simply a tool to grow resilience. They are a tool to grow resilience. Because, so think about that. What if this market we're in right now is actually exactly what you need to experience to develop the skills, maybe your salesmanship or saleswomanship needs to improve. Maybe your communication skills could use some sharpening. Maybe your marketing ability needs some improvement. Maybe this market is exactly what you need to grow yourself. So when that next opportunity exists, you can explode in that time because of how you utilized this experience. And again, how do we know that that's possible? Because you've already proven it. You've already proven it with other life experiences that are more challenging than today. So I'm going to bring up a question, and I'm going to invite everybody to answer this question. There's a couple layers to it. So I'm going to invite you to, I'll put up on the screen for a little bit, and I want to invite you to just write down some notes to yourself personally about what this was for you. Okay. So here's the question. What is a time you experienced extreme adversity and overcame it? What is a time you experienced extreme adversity and overcame it? Here's a couple pieces to that. How did you show up? How did you show up? What actions, mindset did you bring to the experience? Right? So when you had this adversity, you went through this thing, this time in your life, how did you respond to it? What actions did you take? What mindset did you bring to it? Maybe how did your mindset change during that time? Another part here that's really important to focus on is who else was involved? Who else was involved in this experience with you? Was it a family member? Was it a team member? Was it a child? Was it a significant other? Who else was involved in your overcoming of this adversity, and how did they show up in support? How do they show up in support? So I'm going to give you a couple minutes here to just jot down some answers for yourself. And then what I'm going to do is we're actually going to break you guys up into small groups. And you can share what your answers are to this question. Okay. So you can share your answers to this question. So again, I'll just walk through it. So take some notes for yourself. And if you're driving or not in a position where you can write your notes, just get the concept into your head. All right, again, the question is, what is a time you experienced extreme adversity and overcame it? How did you show up? What actions or mindset did you bring to the experience? Maybe how did your mindset change? Who else was involved? And how do they support? So just take a moment or two and jot down a couple of notes for yourself. And then in a minute, we'll go and partner you guys up into small groups of about 3. And then you can share your answers to the question. So give you about 1 or 2 minutes on this. All right. What is the time you experienced extreme adversity and overcame it? How did you show up? What actions or mindset did you bring? Who else was involved? How did they support? So what's going to happen here is I'm gonna partner y'all up into rooms. And so what we're going to do is in those breakout rooms, you'll get about 3 minutes each to share. Right. So just kind of go through the questions of what was there. By the way, feel free to take a minute to introduce yourself. So you can say, my name is Mary Austin. I'm a real estate agent from Washington State or wherever you happen to be. And you can share a little bit about yourself and then share about the adversity. It's be a great chance for you to meet some of the neighbors here in this training, and they'll get to hear you go as well. So about 3 minutes each in your shares of the time that you overcame adversity. How did you show up? What mindsets did you bring to it? How did others show up to support as well? So I'm going to go ahead and pair everyone up into your groups. Go ahead and accept. There's going to be a little thing to accept the invitation, and then it's going to put you into a separate breakout room. Just so you know, we don't record the breakout rooms, so those are kept private. So anything that you do share in there is not going to be publicly recorded, just in case I didn't communicate that. So go ahead and join your groups now. And I'll periodically pop into the groups as well. So you can, you'll see my face pop in there. So go ahead and join your groups now. All right, ladies, great to have you back. Get started here in a moment once everyone makes it back into the room. It's one of the fun things about Zoom is there's so many capabilities that this can create. They said that during COVID-19, one of the interesting, you can call it a benefit, you can call it just a reality, but because of COVID-19, what actually happened is that online e-commerce, right, doing business online, accelerated by 10 years in 2020 because we all had to figure out ways of finding a way to make business work. So good on Zoom, whose stock probably quadrupled during that time. All right. Well, hey, great to have everyone back. I stepped in and heard some really interesting stories and whatnot, but I would love to hear from, a couple of you throughout the groups that you were in. What were some of the themes? What did you notice as you were all sharing specific experiences of, extreme adversity that you overcame? What actions did you take? What mindsets did you bring? What mindset did you maybe need to change? And who else was involved and how might they have been involved? So we'll hear from a couple of you and then we'll kind of like start to put these all together and wrap up our session today. So we'll hear from a couple of you, quick shares. What were some of the consistencies within the themes, the ideas from your groups?
In our group, the consistent thing was we all made the decision to succeed. We had the option to fail, but we all chose to find a way to work it out.
Yeah. There's something that's beautiful about that statement, right? The word decide means to cut off or to kill off, right? So CIDE, that word is a part of multiple different similar words, right? Like homicide, suicide, different things like that, which means to kill off and to cut off. So the moment you decide to do something, you're cutting off the alternatives that it's not going to work out. You're cutting off the alternatives that you're not going to figure it out, that you're not going to make it. And it's interesting because for any of you who've been in that experience, like what's the emotion when you finally decide? Like, what do you feel next? And I think the common feeling is freedom, right? It's this freedom that I'm not going to put any energy into that. I'm just going to figure this out. And the moment we get off, it's like the moment we get off the fence, the moment a buyer or a seller gets off the fence, right? Just decide either way. Stop worrying about this and you can move forward powerfully. So I love that. Thanks, Ben.
Empowered is freedom and empowered.
I love that. Empowered. And a distinction, by the way, of the word empowered versus disempowered, right? In business, the stance that we want for ourselves, the stance we want for our clients is to feel empowered. And the distinction of those words is empowered is the belief, when we're holding the belief, I can do this. Disempowered is when we have the belief, I can't. And if you ever notice yourself when you're in an empowered state in your business, maybe you listen to a motivational speech, you watch a training, you get a client, you have this thing that you start to feel empowered. I can do this. And then there's that other part where like maybe a deal falls apart, maybe something you thought was going to come to fruition didn't. And then there's this disempowered belief of like, man, maybe I can't do this. That's the distinction, right? Of being empowered versus disempowered. So what else? What other themes or ideas came across? I think, Eric, you were going to share something as well from your group. Oh, we just got to get you unmuted, bud.
Sorry. It just made me think when you positively framed decide, I've always looked at it as you should choose, never decide. Like decide is kind of this, choose is more empowering, but you just kind of opened my mind a little bit to that as a positive.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's a great perspective because, yeah, sometimes it can be viewed as a negative thing. And choice is definitely a very empowered way to look at the world. And, ultimately, yes, we're kind of always choosing the moment. But yes, when we decide, it can be a positive for sure. Great. How about from the other group that was there? So Mary, Austin, or Roxana, want to share what were some of the themes or takeaways that you noticed, or Linda, a theme or takeaway that you noticed from people's shares that were relatively consistent with each within your group? Not everybody all at once.
I think somebody mentioned something about grit. And you know, perseverance, and we also talked about listening. So
What do you mean by listening?
Well, and I think
Say more about that.
just, you know, it just seems like the more we know what people want, the more we can help them. And I'll let Linda continue on.
Go for it, Linda.
Oh, I was just going to say one of the things that Mary specifically brought up that I was like, oh, I'm going to write that down, was kind of with the grit. We talked about going through that, but you know, looking forward and taking this time, kind of like what you had spoken about, to really reflect and prepare for the future. And she mentioned being interested versus being interesting. So focusing on being interested and understanding your clients and building those relationships. Did I explain that right, Mary?
You did. And I actually picked that up from one of these MBS groups. They said, stop trying to be, I think it was where I got it. Stop trying to be interesting, be interested. And I my last two sales, I was thinking, wow, the market's really crummy. And I was thinking that in my head, but these buyers were like, I want to buy now. I can afford it. I want to get this done. And I thought, I need to be listening. And now that I've been working on that, I've been thinking that, yeah, there's a bunch of people that are hesitant to buy now, but I have some other people that want to buy now. So I want to give them lots of love.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I want to put up some bows on a few things that y'all said. This is a really beautiful perspective to take, because this was part of last week's training as well. We talked about listening, which is we have a filter of how we hear other people, right? So if you've had a couple of negative experiences, we're going to not listen to this person wholly and newly. We're going to listen to them through the lens of the challenges, the mistakes, the views that we already have of them. So even if they're saying something really nice, like a compliment, we're not even going to hear it as a compliment. We're going to hear it through the lens of our perspective we already have of this person. So that's a great thought, Mary, which is like, yeah, we can look at this market and say, this is a hard market. Well, if that's your filter, what will you notice? And the obvious thing is you're going to notice all the problems. You're going to notice everything that's not working in the market right now. And this might be a weird mindset, but I'm going to pull back to something that was actually revolutionary, that completely altered my sales career. So some of you guys know that I have a history of working for the Cutco Knife Company. So I got a job there when I was 19 and actually was very successful with that brand for many years. And the moment things really changed for me is I went to college in Spokane, Washington, a small school called Gonzaga University. And I remember being in my Cutco sales meeting and they would give the recognition out, right? Like not unlike a real estate sales meeting, like, hey, here's the top listing agent for the month. Here's the top sale, buyer's agent, all these things. And so they were giving out all these awards. And I remember sitting there and like got nothing, right? Because I was not selling much. And there was this moment where I was like saying, oh, well, that's because they've got all the good leads. And I'm making judgment about why other people are winning. And there was this epiphany that showed up that was like, it's interesting. Every month or every week, because we meet every week, no matter how much I sell, the team in our office in the city of Spokane sells about $10,000 worth of knives every month. And I had this interesting reframe of there are $10,000 worth of buyers in this city every week, regardless of how much work I do. And if we reframe this to real estate for your industry, how many listings and sales occurred in the last month? And look at that from the perspective of that is possible in my market. It is happening. I can't ignore it. The question is, am I the one getting those deals? Now, what dictates who's going to get the deal? Who's having the most conversations, who's engaging with the most people. Because if you've already decided this is a hard market and you stop engaging with conversations, you're not going to get any deals, or you do, but they're going to happen by happenstance and not often. And so that moment for me, I think, was a really empowering experience during a challenging time, which was this reframe of a mindset of like, hey, well, how much business is actually happening outside of me? That is what's possible. That is actually what's possible. And ultimately, you get to write your check every month in that regards for yourself. How many conversations are you engaging with? Yes, you don't know everybody. Are you going to get all those deals? No, but just standing from the empowered state that is possible in my market. How do I know that? Because it's happening. Then yes, it's possible for you. So I love that. Last piece here that I want to put a note on was this experience of other people being involved. Didn't hear a lot of shares about that, but I'm sure there was some of that involved. When you think of getting through adversity, everybody in some way, shape, or form probably had somebody near them that supported them during that difficult time. And what's so interesting about having other people involved in our lives during adversity is there's this Harvard research study about adversity. And what the study is they took individuals to a hill that was near campus, and they were supposed to hike this hill. And what they did is at the bottom of the hill, they had two groups. They had a group of people who would hike the hill by themselves. And then they had a group of people who would hike the hill with a partner. So there'd be two people about to hike the hill. And they asked each group to rate the steepness of the hill, how steep they thought the hill was. And what they noticed was the group that went with a partner viewed the slope as less steep than the people who are going by themselves. Now, what does that mean for our business? The more we are trying to do everything by ourselves, the experience is that this is hard. And when we do it with somebody else, we have a partner in crime, and it could be our spouse that we're connecting with. It could be our manager, our team lead. It could be a coach that we have. But it's somebody who's there with us, who can stand next to us. And when we know we're going after a challenge and we know we're not going at it alone, we actually feel like this is more manageable than if we were by ourselves. And when I look at times, because we've all gone through times of adversity, the times where that adversity lasts the longest are the times that I'm trying to do most of it by myself. And it's often the times when I'm not sharing what I'm going through with other people, and I'm keeping my struggles private, and I'm not being transparent and open to whether it be my spouse, whether it be my coach or my business partners or my team. When I'm not transparent about what I'm struggling with, I suffer longer. But when I actually allow myself to be vulnerable enough to share what I'm dealing with and what I'm struggling through, I have a partner who can give a perspective that I can't, or help me do something that I can't, and we can get through it much faster, and we can get through the other side. And this is why, I think there's so much value in being a part of a team, right? Being a part of, like, whether it be the brokerage that you're in, or if you have a mastermind that you're in, a couple of agents that get together, or if you get together with your loan officer, weekly to talk about things. I know Eric, what I love about Eric, I know a while back, he had these like weekly calls for his realtor partners, and they would just come on, and the conversation was about lead generation every single week for like 7 weeks, something like that. And I was like, wow, what a cool container to hold for a group of people to be focused on what can we do together here and make more sales and create more business. Because a lot of us don't take the initiative to create those. But who's stopping you from doing it, right? And this is a point I wanted to end on, because I think that really, for you to get through what you're going through right now, my invitation to you is to realize that it wasn't meant for you to go through alone. Because we draw strength from relationship. And I know sometimes that can be hard because we've been hurt. We've leaned into relationships that weren't reciprocal, and that can happen. But the reality is that the greatest achievements we ever create in our lives rarely happen alone. You might have done a lot of the initial work to get it going, but it's people who open doors and support you and help you stay aligned that are also part of your success. So life will find a way. You will find a way through this market, provided, right? Just to review, provided you approach things from the space of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, right? The growth mindset being, hey, there's deals happening. People are buying houses. Yes, the rates are insane, but people still seem to buy houses, even at 8% or whatever it is right now, right? Versus the fixed mindset, which is like, man, real estate is hard. There's no buyers out there. There's no business. I'm going to have to deal with so many difficult conversations because rates are so high, right? That's a fixed mindset, right? Feeling like nothing can be changed. That's a part of it. Grit, the ability to endure pain and suffering and staying focused on the goal that you want. Part of that actually is to have a goal. So what's a realistic goal that you can have for yourself? I know many of us have actually stopped even setting goals because it's like, it's so hard for me to justify or guess what's going to happen in the market. I don't even want to set a goal for myself. But actually having a goal, even if it's small, gives you a focal point, gives you an area to be directing your energy towards. So pick a goal. And third is to remember that you've been through so many challenging times. So if you ever find yourself in a disempowered state, just number one, accept that it's okay. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to be bummed out. It's okay to be, feel drained because of the market. But you don't have to stay there, right? You don't have to stay there. If you want to get out of it, you can. That's number 4, which is to involve other people, right? Who else is sharing your struggle with you? Not necessarily carrying your bag, but maybe, but at least it has the ear that you can share. And here's the key thing, have a relationship with people that you're not just venting what's negative, but really supporting what you're each up to. Because if our relationships ultimately just become talking about what's wrong, that's not an empowering relationship. That's actually not a relationship that's going to support your growth. So life will find a way. So will you, provided you're looking for the way. That's it. So I'm going to wrap myself there. We got a couple minutes left. So we'll kind of open this up for, any thoughts, comments, questions. This is our last training. So there's nothing really beyond this. I do obviously periodic trainings as well. So, we'll let you guys know if we have some of those come up. But, I'm just going to cut myself off there a few minutes early. So I'm going to swing this back to you. Big shout out to Eric. Thanks for hosting this. He was kind of the catalyst because, Eric is learning how to, really do and run some of these trainings himself for agents in his area. And so, thanks for taking the time to host this, man.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to take some of this and disseminate it out on my own meetings. I really appreciate it and the opportunity for that. If there is any questions, let's go ahead and have you do the little hand thing raised, because otherwise I want to be respectful of John's time and wrap up a little bit. One thing I'll leave with you, if you don't know a little bit more about John, the Mr. Thank You Project was kind of his first thing, and the wallpaper behind him is not really wallpaper. Those cards are part of the Mr. Thank You Project, but this is a book that you can get, easy to find. I think, well, and this is what I do personally, at the end of every calendar year, so kind of that dead time between Christmas and New Year's, where we're not really taking on new clients. I'm not taking any loan applications, like everything is done until January. I read this book and I read it every single year along with the Go Giver, A, because they're quick reads, but B, because they put me in a real good positive mindset to really kick off the start of the next year. And John, I appreciate your message in the Mr. Thank You Project. It's a great book, quick read, highly recommend. But maybe you can take that as a little bridge and segue for some of the other coaching and consulting services that you offer, if anybody's curious.
Sure. Hey, actually, real quick, what I'm going to do is raise your hand if you have a copy of my book, The Mr. Thank You Project. Raise your hand. Okay. If you don't, here's what I want you to do. Email me your mailing address, and I will send you a free copy of my book. So you don't have to pay for shipping, just my little gift to you. Thanks for being on the call. So I'm going to put my email in here. It's john@mrthankyou.com. Just shoot me an email with your mailing address, and then we'll get those shipped out. Probably realistically next week. I'm literally closing on our new house today. After this, I'm going to go to title and sign docs for our new house. But send me an email with your address, and then we're going to go ahead and mail you a copy of the Mr. Thank You Project. If you guys don't know much about this book, this is about a journey of in my entrepreneurial journey of feeling like really overwhelmed, depressed, unhappy, even though our business had some success. And this was a journey of learning how to be a successful business person and make happiness a focus at the same time. So if you haven't yet, you can check out the TED Talk. It's on YouTube. So yeah, shoot me an email, john@mrthankyou.com with your address. I'll mail you a signed copy of the book as my little gift. And thank you to you for being on the calls. Yeah. So what do we do? How do we help people? So as a profession, so I'm a professional coach. This is what I do. I work with individuals in the business space, varying different spaces, direct sales, real estate, mortgage, podcasters, things like that. And really the objective in when I coach or work with individuals is simply to help them be empowered in the work that they do so that they can take the right action. Because at the end of the day, everybody here knows that when you're in an empowered state, you're going to take the right action and move your life and business forward. And when you're in a disempowered state, we don't. And so for a lot of my clients, that's who I am for them in their corner, is to support them through that. Also 20 years of business experience working with, marketing, sales, client development. I would say lead generation and relationship development is the number one thing that, I tend to coach people on, which is how to build better, richer relationships with their current people that they're engaging with, as well as the new relationships that they build. Because if you've seen some of my other trainings, that my like favorite statement of all time is that you are one relationship away from transforming your life and business. And I really believe that. And to the degree of like, if your health is not in a good place right now, you are one relationship away. If you meet a trainer who can get your butt into shape and get you eating the right foods, like that one relationship could change your life. If in your business you meet an investor who actually does, 3 to 5 transactions a year, hey, that's a big deal. That can open up a lot of doors. Maybe you meet somebody who runs a company and they let you come in and speak and teach how to buy real estate classes and give updates on the market once every quarter. That could be a door that opens up lots of business for individuals. And so I believe that relationships are really our access to transforming our business. So if you have any questions about that, when you email me, just make a note. You have a question about coaching, all I do is I schedule discovery calls. We'll have a chat with you, see what you're looking for from a coach right now, share with you how I work with people. If it feels like a fit, cool. If not, no big deal. My kind of life stance at this point is, I'm grateful to have been on the receiving end of a lot of great leadership. And I also believe that right now the world needs more good leadership than ever. And I think, Jen, maybe you had made this comment, but there's this kind of difficult experience of like, sometimes even if your leader is freaking out, it's like, where the hell do you draw your leadership from? And that's still up to you, right? Because if you're not getting it, it's still your responsibility to find it. So anyways, that's it. That's what coaching looks like for me. But beyond that, you guys can find me everywhere on social media. So that's it. Eric, anything else?
No, thanks for everything you did over the last 3 classes, and have fun at the loan closing today.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. And by the way, here's a fun fact about that. So the questions become like, working with all sorts of realtors and loan officers, like literally every day, how did you pick like the ones that we went with? And at the end of the day, it came down to those that chose to engage and create the best relationship, right? Those that over time, even though they know I talk to realtors and loan officers every day, these were the ones who actually even still stepped forward and chose to build a relationship over time. And none of them I met, last week. They were all people I had met and known for 3+ years. And I think that is something that can interestingly be frustrating, because sometimes it's like, if you've ever lost a deal to a client's sister, right? Like someone's sister got into real estate and then you lost the client and you're like, oh my God, like it's so frustrating. But if you think about it, isn't that what should happen? Like the deal should go to the person with the relationship. Yeah. And so my challenge for myself and everybody is always like, how can I build that relationship to be that person with each individual? Because that's what's going to help get you the results that you want. So.
Well, John, thanks again. Appreciate all of the training, and I'll circle back to you just on the rest of what we've talked about, but appreciate you. And thanks everybody for taking time out of your day. You've got other places you could have been and other things you could have been doing. So we appreciate you joining and hope you took something out of this.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Eric, can I do one more thing? Forgive me for doing this. I know I'm intruding. One more thing. There's one other thing I want to say, because Eric is obviously a dear friend. He's out in Idaho. You guys ever read that book, like the 5 Love Languages? You guys ever read those 5 Love Languages? Right. So what are they again? It's like words of affirmation, gifts, physical touch. What are the other ones? It's acts of service and quality time, something like that. Did you guys know that there is a 6th?
Affection, physical affection.
Physical affection. That's a better way to say that, by the way, than physical touch. Did you guys know that there is a 6th love language? And it is actually Eric's love language. Do you guys know this? That love language is referrals. Eric feels so much love when he gets a referral from somebody, because when he's like, wow, they really love me. They sent me a deal, you know? Yes, I spent some time building this whole training and everything, but like I feel love when that happens. So show your love to Eric, send him a deal. And we love Eric. We're big fans of him. So thanks for helping us, Eric.
You're too kind. I appreciate it. Thanks again, everybody.
All right. Bye, guys.
Everybody, take care.